Okay, so keep in mind there's a lot of OGs, right, original gangsters that know that I'm right away. First of all, we see that gang members in California, right, the third letter is the C. And this rapper called T Nutty who made an album, and he talks about, he has a song I believe called The Third Letter, right, ABC. Okay, the second letter, right, is the B. Now, if we look at the Mexican gangs, Lemmy, right, goes back to the M, which is the 13th letter. And then there's the N for the 14th letter. Then there's the 88 is a white supremacist code for the 2H, and to them it stands for hail. And the second word is Hitler. I don't want, them to think that I violated YouTube rules or something, so I put it that way. And so this is a common code there. And there's also police code out there, there's Masonic code, there's various codes there. In the Bible, it talks about anagrams and anagrams and cryptograms, right? Cryptograms. In fact, the word scripture is a play on words for crypt's root. And notice that part of my roots, right, are Ibos. I'm also part white. My mom came here on the Mayflower. There's all kinds of connections with the Yam and the Yam cults of Nigeria, or the Yam rituals, rather. It's a story for another day. In May 1st, May Day. May is Yam spelled backwards. Also, Yah is the moon deity, right? The M for magic. You see that in Ronald McDonald. There's other connections, It can also stand for master, master mason, what have you. There's different ways that you kind of decipher the wordplay and you kind of see what it's telling you, right? There's all kinds of techniques there. There's all kinds of history in that, right? A magic spell and spelling, right? Alphabet, okay? So you have a bunch of gay people, right? The word mage is a play on words for game, and gay in the second word is me, not me. I'm not gay, but that's the wordplay, right? So the word game is mage scrambled. So the whole game is this kind of magic game, right? The word magic is a play on words for I'm cage, okay? And you see in Mortal Kombat, for example, right, MK, right, MK Ultra, which is called Ram Scrambled, MK, Mortal Kombat, you see the Magic K, and they're killing people with their magic game, right? And you see Johnny Cage, is this actor, Hollywood, right, the Hollywood, the magic wand, the occult, all those weirdos in Hollywood and the occult societies. Remember, I'm from California, home of the Bohemian Grove and Hollywood, and a bunch of weirdos everywhere, right? Now, don't expect me to respect them. They're bad people. Kids are getting raped, people trafficked. They do all kinds of horrible things. I don't play the game. And so, some people might say, well, you're talking reckless, right? You're basically saying that you used to be a Crip, and there's, Bloods are like one of the dominant forces in Detroit. If I'm not mistaken, they're probably the dominant force. When I went to a Burlington coat factory, as I was exploring places, I went there with a family member. I believe it's in Southfield or one of these small towns around here in the Detroit area. And, one thing that stood out immediately, I was like, oh man, because I was wearing my blue Cortez shoes, right? And because they kept me from wearing shoes, so I was wearing these old, ugly white shoes, having like 4, 5, 6 pair of new shoes. I'm more like 7 or 8 pair of new shoes that I couldn't wear because they're using technology to keep me from wearing them. So as I'm trying on the different shoes and I make some decision, right, I wear these blue shoes that are very much Crip shoes, right? But I'm not a gangster. I've given up that identity since 2015. It's now 2026. So that's 11 years. And that was a difficult thing for me to do because before I knew who I was, that's how I identified, and I lifted weights, did martial arts, stockpiled weapons and really took it very seriously, drove an Infiniti, had cornrows with blue rubber bands, but I never killed anybody I never killed anybody, okay? And I never killed anybody who was a blood. And in fact, I grew up with a lot of Bloods. Shout out to those people I grew up with. To the degree a righteous person can give a shout out because people aren't obeying God through me. And whether they're this, that, or another thing, I can't give them too much respect because I'm Christ and I have to judge people. But it makes me want to say things like shout out because I grew up with, Norteños, Bloods, Crips. I was friends with Serenos in certain situations. Okay, I'm not somebody who grew up with a lot of animosity toward the Blood gang. And some Bloods and Crips are aligned. In fact, Flipside, it was very unfortunate. He passed away. I made contact with Flipside. He was an OG from the Bounty Hunter Bloods gang in Watts. And, I chopped it up with him very briefly on the internet. And, we agreed that we got to work together to make a future for these kids. Next thing you know, that he gets killed. And I kind of assumed that it was one of their main rivals, Grape Street, that did it. And I was very mad at them for a while. But regardless, there's also a lot of Crips in Detroit, a lot of other gangs. But I'm not scared of them, right? I'm Christ. I fear God alone. No disrespect to them. Just kicking the ballistics here.